Ranquet, animal communicator, author, speaker, and founder of Communication with All Life University. And today, it's been really fun to have everyone along because some of you are here for the first time. Some of you maybe are joining me after being here every day, which thank you, I love that. But this has been really fun because I've always kept a little note above my desk over there saying that my mission is to empower others to deeply connect with all life so that together we can give voice to those who can't speak for themselves and ultimately heal the planet. So when I think of that, at this point, I think I can't do this alone, right? So I often say that I want to help 1 million animals and their people this year, but then I realized that there's 70 million people that need help, so that's another story. But we talked about that yesterday. Anyway, I feel like there's a lot of work to be done on the planet with what's going on, and yesterday we really went into what the life of an empath is. And I know that along with what the life of an empath is, we have to have a good understanding of what where our intuition really did kick in. So, because hopefully you're not just an empath sitting there being empathic and torturing yourself, right? That's kind of part of the territory, sadly. Is that the first part of this journey might be very painful. In fact, I love the whole idea of the dark night of the soul because for me personally, I had a dark decade, and you might have also. So, but the connecting with the animals and finding my intuition is really some of the. I mean, obviously that's the goal, the gift in all of this, and it's absolutely the way that we get to use this empathic thing. And so I want to tell a few stories actually about some of the ways that I discovered that I had a pretty strong intuition. And this is really ironic because it had a few tentacles with it. But I talk a lot about my horse Pet One, and I will talk about her again in a moment. But there was actually a horse before that. There's a few horses, several horses. But I went to this Catholic girls' school when I was little, and most of my life. And in that Catholic girls' school, they did a lot of fundraising activities. And so I was a complete horse freak, as many of you are, or just an animal freak in general. I actually thought that oh my God, if I can find that thing, I should really show that thing. Anyway, I really, at the age of 7, I knew that I have a piece of paper, and I had this little handbook because I was going to get a horse, and in that handbook it said that I wanted 2 dogs, 2 horses, 2 cats, 2 cows, a lion, and a raccoon. And I don't know why I only wanted 1 lion and 1 raccoon, but anyway. So I did lots of things to try to get a horse, bake sales, all those sorts of things that would never get you a horse, but whatever. I wrote plays that I then tried to sell to the neighbors that were not good, and I should never be singing, but I was making musicals. So anyway, my mother would take me to horse shows, and she would take me to things where I could see horses, thinking that if she kept it at a distance, I would not, that would fulfill my horse thing. So I ended up knowing, there, Queen Latifah's gone up there. She's gone to higher ground. Anyway, I knew. So my mother takes me to this horse show. There's a raffle for this horse, and all the proceeds are going to go to my Catholic girls' school. So I tell my mom when I'm sitting there, the intermission happened, and they brought the horse out, and he ran around the arena, and I said, "Oh, Mom, that's my horse." Hanky Panky is my horse. And she said, oh, honey, no, we just bought 5 chances. We bought 5 tickets. There's a chance you could win, but many people, and she didn't want me to be disappointed, but I knew. And that afternoon we went to the opening of some mall outside of the Seattle area called South Center, and there was a wishing well, and I tossed 5, for the 5 chances, I tossed 5 pennies in, and I wished that Hanky Panky would come home tonight. And then I went home, and my neighbors, all the neighbors came over to play, and I was in the backyard, and I told everyone that I had won a horse. And then the phone rings, and my dad never answered the phone, and he never swore. So my mom answered the phone. She hands the phone to my dad, and all of a sudden he starts cussing, and I knew I won the horse, right? And so I'm saying this because part of being, and anyway, it ended up being this whole crazy journey that years later, so my parents, it was a green horse, and I was a green person, new to horses. And so they ended up telling me they sold the horse. They gave it to a family. Oh, that's awesome. So they ended up, about 6 months later. So I only had Hanky Panky for about 6 months. It was a very profound 6 months. But years later, I went to a summer camp where I was going to go hiking, not hiking, but horse trekking through the mountains. And when I got to the location where we were going to be leaving from, we were packing up actually got off the bus, and there were the horses we were going to ride for the next week, and there were the mules that were going to carry our stuff. And this horse was going crazy in the distance, just going crazy. And I'm like, that is Hanky Panky. And then there was no way that could have been Hanky Panky. And nobody could believe this horse, who was so calm, was being so crazy. And finally I went up to one of the people that worked there, and I said, what's that horse's name? And he said, Hanky Panky. And I was like, oh my God. So of course I went over and had this big reunion with him. So obviously it was as impactful for him as well as it was for me. But anyway, it led me, surely my parents had promised that I would get a horse, and they didn't think I would remember because they did guitar lessons, and, I did every sport. And it still just circled back around to suddenly at 8, 9, I'm working at the neighbor's barn. So it never went away, and I've got 2 horses out there, and it just never ended. But the reason I tell that story is that I think, sometimes people are clairaudient, clairvoyant, people hear things, people see things, some people taste things, some people smell things, and some people are just kind of knowers. And I think part of the empathic journey is that you kind of discover what you are in that, and then you develop all the other things. And I was a knower. That was one of the many things that I knew was going to happen. And I didn't know I knew it was going to happen, because certainly everybody was telling me it wasn't going to happen, but it happened. And so when I think about how much I connected with that horse because of that first experience of knowing I was going to end up with him, and just how connected we were. And he was 2 years, he was barely 3, and I have pictures of me riding him bareback. He was a gentle giant, and he totally took care of me. And so he was the first of that. But then years later, when I ended up with Pet 1, I think I said yesterday, or you'll get it in an email, that it was closely after my sister had died that I ended up getting Pet 1. And she really took care of me at that point. And that deep connection was unbelievable. And when I think about that, I think about the life of an empath. I had a lot of years, I don't know about you, but maybe you'll resonate with this, but I've certainly had those times where I don't anymore, but I used to just feel like I could cry for weeks on end for no reason. Has anybody else ever felt like that? Claudia, did you ever feel like that?
Ever? Still? Sometimes? Yes.
Not
in the past, still.
Yeah. But is anybody else resonating with that? And this is my Raven coffee cup. Ravens are my friends. I think of coffee cups like oracle cards, right? Oh, we're having a Raven day. So anyway, is anyone responding to that at all? No?
Not yet.
I guess I'm the only person that just felt like crying my entire life away. But so anyway, one of the things that deep connection did was it took me out of myself. And it goes back to what I was saying yesterday. When we're looking at that mission, we can get out of that need to turn it all in on ourselves and to take it all on. So it's really important that we recognize where those connections are. And so I had used an animal communicator in 1989 with Pet One, 88, 89, and that's what turned the corner for me of that deepened connection. And at that point, I really understood a lot more about all of that. What are you getting any responses?
Oh yeah, it's like the floodgates. Teresa Newby, yes, all the time. Audrey, Robin, still. Carol Fairchild, yes, I do relate. And Tammy Joyful
I don't want to
Leisure,
spit my coffee out. Sorry. Anyway, I almost spit my coffee out, Audrey. Thank you. Okay. So who were the last couple?
Tammy Lesher, Joyful Lesher,
Oh,
and then
hi, Tammy.
Mitchell Osborne. I'm more clairvoyant and clairaudient, but I've had those empathic moments. I think I shut more of that off as a child for play-off protection.
So that's a really important thing. It goes back to what I was saying the other day. Like, I think that, we can love our parents, we can love our siblings, but there's a certain point, I think, especially when you're super empathic, that you have like this moment where you're like, wait, these people are going to teach me these life lessons? I don't think so. And we kind of shut down and we create really maybe either dramatic, like I did, or completely shut down emotions. And I actually could range between the two of like, fly off the handle to, uh-oh. Like when the nuns were chasing me down, I just went invisible. It wasn't a big hit. But, I was always in trouble. But anyway, was anyone else?
Yeah, Maria News de Vesa said, not all the time, but at times when I felt that deep connection. Marlene Snyder says, on a different note, she says that she loves animals, but there's something about dogs that feels she's so connected to. Hummingbirds have also shared messages intuitively. She said she once saw a hummingbird beside her nephew that no one else saw.
Oh my God, I love that. I love that. I want to do at some point a whole series on miracles. But anyway.
And Carolyn Thomas says that being empathic in the real world is hard.
It is, and
right.
There's times, and I want to say hi to everybody. There are times, I can remember. I used to freak out kind of in public, right? Like even at airports, and now I love airports because I just am so entertained. And I just kind of walk and look around, but that wasn't always where I was. So I'm really grateful that I can walk through an airport now, and especially like international airports on some of these big eco trips where I just get to like, wow, look at these people from this part of the world. So I make it really fun for myself, and I would encourage all of you to think about, where are these tough places and how can you flip it for yourself? Because I still kind of get wiggy maybe in hospitals, but okay, here's a great one. I used to cry driving up to the shelter when I would have to go in and talk to animals 20 years ago. I don't have that anymore. I don't take on, I have enough protection for myself that I'm not taking this on, and in fact, my mission is bigger than my feelings. So when I go into the shelter, I'm going in to help, and there's no way I'm going to take this on, because that's going to get in the way of my helping, and my helping is more important than my feelings for the moment, which are possibly projections, right? Not every dog in there is sad. Many of the feelings are projections, and they're not helpful. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Is anyone else seeing anything about that?
Maya Merker says, I relate to the crying Joan and also the shutting down because it felt like too much. Carolyn Thomas jumps in. Unfortunately, I have to be medicated to work in the real world. As my bosses say, I am too sensitive and use this against me. On the plus side, I am extremely kind to animals and people.
Yeah. You know what? I understand, and I think that my old spiritual teacher used to say, "Heavy meds, Joan. It's time for heavy meds," but it was heavy meditation.
Mitchell Osborne, there's two people that are actually, I think we're going to have to put this quote out. My mission is bigger than my feelings. Mitchell Osborne said, is that the correct quote? Two people have commented how much they love that message.
Yeah. It is. It's bigger than our feelings. And when we get into that, it's bigger than my feelings, then I'm going to do it. And actually it's really touching me that people are loving that and resonating with that, because I think if all of us got on board with that, and I think that's sometimes, and this is off topic, but sometimes that's what happens with rescues and a lot of nonprofits is that you've got a lot of people that have a great mission, and then you get into the feeling of it, and then we lose our pace with it, and we forget our mission. And our mission has to be bigger than our feelings. We just have to be in touch with our mission at all times. That's why I have my mission up next to my desk, because there's sometimes, certainly when, a client is, has to put their dog down that maybe I've worked with for a million years. My friend, Dr. Jill Todd, who I started a CBD company with called Jill and Joan, CBD, it's up there. Anyway, she and I used to, when I lived in Seattle, we got together every Friday night. I mean, once a month on a Friday night, had dinner. She would do acupuncture on my dogs and horses and cats. And we would literally have a moment, kind of a moment of silence. And we had some tears together over animals that we had known, especially we had a lot of mutual clients. And animals that we had known that maybe had to be put down that week, or had to, we had a lot of losses at times, but our mission was bigger than us, and we mourned it together. And that was really, so it's like part of what's happening in this private Facebook group is people are going to find their tribe. One thing that's happened out of the Communication with All Life University is that you cannot believe the tribe that has developed. There are times, there are 4 of them, Carrie, Mary, Marie Christine, and Karen Thomas, that they want to go start a sanctuary together. And I'm like, well, can I come? I'm feeling left out of my own university. So anyway, I mean, like when they're here for a weekend workshop, I'll be sitting here by myself, and like all of a sudden on Facebook, they're all out together doing selfies, right? So, I mean, because there's such a great tribe developing here. And I think that's one thing. When you're empathic, you have to find a tribe, and you have to find a way that you're not staying in what Carolyn Mace used to call woundology, right? That you are processing, but you're not staying in that. And that there's a fine line for empaths, but it's an art. And yes.
Eleanor says, oh my God, I love that. I still have a hard time managing my feelings, and the discomfort holds me back from going forward with my goals sometimes. And then Marilyn Snyder says, you're really touching my heart, feeling chills. Thank you for explaining feelings and mission.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for saying that.
Eleanor is saying, I definitely think it helps to be part of a group of people who are empaths and moving forward with their missions and managing their feelings, because it's hard. It is.
And I teach in my big program. I have this. You go through the animal communication part, and then you go through the energy healing. And if nothing else, the energy healing, maybe you never want to do it, but it's about energy management and managing who you are in the world and managing our energy. And it goes back to what I wanted to talk about today, with the idea of, the first connection with a horse. I mean, it really was hanky panky. And then I had another horse, Honey Horse, who was the best horse on the planet. And everybody told me they were not riding my horse, my sisters and all their friends. So I used to leave a little piece of paper under my saddle, and if the piece of paper was on the floor, I knew they were riding my horse. And when I did book signings in Seattle with my first book, Communication with All Life, every one of my sister's friends came and admitted that they rode Honey Horse. I'm like, I know you did, because I set you up. Anyway, Honey Horse was another one that I had just this amazing connection with. And I think she's reincarnated down in my paddock right now, in the form of Anya. But anyway, so the thing with Pet One was when I started using the animal communicator way back, I realized that it was like this open channel that was so, I can't even explain it, but it's like, I love someone, I'm really connected, I can't even describe this connection, this is my soulmate, but it was like the animal communication session with someone else took it into like otherworldly. And after several sessions over the years, I realized I don't want somebody else as the point of connection. I want to be this. I want to be this. I want to be this with my own animals. And so I ended up taking a class for a long time, studied for about a year, and then I wanted to be that with, I still thought I was going to be in the film industry, but I thought I could do both. Ha ha ha. Anyway, the idea of being that point of connection for my own animals was just, it was so heart-opening. And then being that for other people became the first step in my bigger mission that I didn't know was my bigger mission. And that is really such an important piece. Yes.
Teresa Newby.
Claudia's holding her hand up. She's raised her hand. I'm kidding.
I have attempted volunteering and or working with animals. It was too emotional for me. I was told by a medium my life purpose is working with animals. Thank you. This is so helpful.
I'm so glad.
Welcome to the tribe.
Yeah, welcome to the tribe. It's a bunch of weirdos, and we're all here.
There's a pretty lengthy, heart-wrenching post, and it's by Yendi or Lendi Garcia. When I started to develop my gifts, I noticed that I started getting very emotional with animals. A lot of cats started coming to my house, even when I have never had a cat before. And once my bosses, who are Muslims, had a celebration and brought a lamb that they had picked up at the butcher to bring to dinner at the end of the celebration to the office. When I left, I started crying, and I had the worst afternoon I ever had. I couldn't stop crying and keep watching in my mind the word, it's not fair, over and over again. That's the words she kept repeating in her mind. It was pretty horrible. I understand that I was sensitive to the whole animal and environmental system.
And that, again...
The painting.
Yeah, hold on. If you want to, it's, you love animals. You've probably been the weirdo most of your life. You've always been overly sensitive, and you're home now. And it's so true, right? It's, the sensitivity, I shared yesterday that I had a period I couldn't even walk through the grocery store because most of the grocery store, any grocery store, is as a result of dead animals or dead fish. And, my love of shopping was just after, most department stores are leather on the first floor. And, that, I'm not walking in there. So I understand, totally understand. I do a lot of shopping online. And I take care of myself, right? I really just take care of myself. And I will be buying a vegan saddle. So anyway, it's just, we have to, so going back to like what I was talking about with my program, like energy management is so huge, and it includes boundaries and knowing what you can and can't do, and really being what I call in my second book, Energy Healing for Animals, being an emotional leader for your animals, but also for yourself.
Yeah, Carolyn Thomas says, I believe I have a mission too, as doors keep opening and leading me on a journey.
I love that.
And now she's here.
Ta-da! Yeah. But, so I know that for me, animal communication became where I wanted to go, and I wanted it to be, I had to really understand my energy in the whole thing. And like I think I shared yesterday, that when I was, it was close enough to my sister's death that I was reading all the Living Buddha, Living Christ. I was reading there was, there were so many good books back then, and it put me into this whole mindful funnel, and then I had this horse, my soulmate, who was absolutely my reminder if I wasn't mindful. And then once I had the animal communication and the floodgates were open, and I was this person that wanted to be that connector, it just, there was no turning back. And I think if you're feeling called to this sort of thing, if this is you, whether it's you are really still very emotional about animals, and I feel like being super emotional about like walking up to the shelter, whether it's the zoo, whether it's the little lamb at the family party or the whatever. I mean, you should see my Thanksgiving. It is completely vegan. And all my friends that are not vegan love my Thanksgivings because we whip up a crazy delicious meal. And anyway, the thing that I really want to impress is that it's almost like my teacher used to talk about the ring past knot. It's like you have to go through this experience to almost graduate or elevate, whatever you want to say. And I feel like that uncontrollable crying, that not like being really moved and not being able to control it. I am still that person. Claudia and I went to a museum just a few weeks ago, and like I look over, we're both like just like sobbing, right? Over it was, what was that exhibit?
It was the photographer who did all of the animals before they go extinct.
Yeah, I'm now gonna start crying. This photographer, National Geographic photographer, Josh, I had something.
I'll look it up.
Yeah,
I'll post it.
Has done this whole exhibit on animals before they go extinct, and right, I'm not done crying yet, people. I am not done crying, but I can manage my energy. What's that?
Our whole group was.
Our whole group was crying, and I just been to Africa with Jen, who was there with us, and of course we spent the whole every time we flew out of somewhere or into somewhere, and we looked down in the little teeny airplane and saw the elephants. Like when we left Tsavo, where the baby elephants were, I cried so hard, and I was in the front seat, and the pilot looked over at me, and you could just see him go, "Oh, this is bad." So, I still cry, but I just can manage my energy in airports, in shelters, in places where I'm on task, and at home, and but I still just generally lose it over certain delicious things like an amazing guy's art based on keeping species alive. So anyway, any other comments?
Eleanor Nairney Cohen. Oh wow, be an emotional leader for animals and for yourself. So good.
It's true. Being, I talk about it all the time with our animals, but it starts here. It starts here. And, if you do nothing else with emotional leadership, if you aren't out there helping others, you start here, it's going to change your household. And when you change your household, you're raising that frequency, and it's exponentially going to reach out and raise the frequency around you. You can't help but to be a different person at work, a different person with friends, a different person in every situation. So, anyone else? Comments, questions, observations?
Eleanor, again, you always think about being a leader to others, less for yourself.
Yeah, that is so true. And if we are taking care of ourselves in a way that no one else is going to, then people will start treating us that way, and animals will start responding that way, and it makes everything better. So this has been, I didn't know that I would sit on Facebook Live ever and get so deep. And I want to thank you for joining me on this dive into kind of my favorite delicious world. I'm not good at small talk anyway. That might be another empathic thing. How many of you are good at small talk? Are you good at small talk, Claudia?
No.
Yeah. I would guess that, like, I'd rather go deep or go home. So anyway, it's been really fun to have you. Yes?
One more comment actually from Carolyn Thomas. She said, I volunteered at a rescue center for 10 years and was often called to give Reiki at end of life. I made this about the animal and grounded myself so that beautiful animal did not see or feel my sadness.
That's so great. So that is an important thing. Like, energy management is being your own emotional leader, and it's also grounding yourself. And then, like Carolyn Thomas had, even though there are times when she's saying that she's felt overly sensitive, she was still able to walk in with that mission. And when we're able to do that, it just makes all the difference in the world. And yeah, so anyway, I would love to have you join that Facebook group, because I know, like me, you want to help animals. And as I said, I'm here to empower others to deeply connect with animals so that together we can give voice to those who can't speak for themselves or help themselves. And we're going to automatically raise the frequency on the planet. And so putting a number on it just for this year is 1 million. As I said, next year it'll be 69 million. 69 million. But this year we're just doing 1 million. So 1 million animals, which automatically helps humans. So I hope you'll join me on that mission and join the Facebook group and join us tomorrow and join my masterclass, Learn to Talk to Animals, Learn to Communicate with Animals. And the masterclass is going to be really fun. And I hope you'll join me. Thank you.